Are we there yet? No! Are we there yet? No! Are we there yet? I think we are. I think it's possible. Is this real life? Yes, it most definitely is. And the real life is going to be none other than the newest and the latest book stream here on Hail to Stephen King. I am so stoked and very happy to be getting this underway. I'll let everybody filter in. Get my book in play. Who's digging this t-shirt? Man, please comment in the stuff below, whether you're in the chat or whether you're just, jumping on. Because seriously, there is so much like nerd-tastic awesomeness going on this shirt that I have right now. It is only for the most hardcore of the hardcore if you understand like the mashup that is this t-shirt and all of its amazingness. Let me scooch over just a wee bit. And I'm going to give it just a minute or so before I start things off official with my, silly greeting and all of that stuff. But wow, what an awesome reread this baby was. I actually had not reread this in a few years. And yeah, man, it re-endeared itself to me like massively, massively, massively. So I'm supremely stoked. In the meantime, I'm going to use this opportunity to throw this link into a few different social sectors, but I'm very stoked to see everybody who is jumping on. I got to turn down the sounds though, so I want to be hearing myself and all of that silliness. And yep, Teddy's here. What's up, man? Malito Paso, buddy. What the hell is happening? Daniel Corey, what up? My dude Rob, what is happening, good sir? And then I have a name that I do not recognize, Seth Domba. Can't stay, but just want to tell you how much I love this series, man. Huge King fan, I'm assuming Jing fan. Since I was 9, love the shirt. Monster Squad rules too. Yes, but this shirt is so much more than even the Monster Squad. Haha. Long days and pleasant nights, says David Edmonds from the UK. Fuego 3 a.m. here. Man, thank you for the dedication. I was really hoping to actually get this going around 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time because I know that's so much easier for my friends in the UK. Like shout out to Mark Pearson, to Jacob, to Mikey Mnemonic, and all of y'all out on the other side of the pond. I have been actually talking with my lady lately about how I want sometime in like before the year of 19 is over, I've been starting to set aside some money because I really want to go across the pond and for like 7 to 10 days and hit up, the UK and maybe a couple of the surrounding countries in Europe and try to just say what's up to as many of the Hail Ka-Tet friends and, that I have made these awesome connections with as possible. It's a pipe dream at this point, but we shall see. Spook Dev is here. Chris Bethel, hell yes. What's up, Fuego? Couldn't get into this one, but I'm going to watch. Maybe it'll give it a reason to try it again. Yeah, man, and that's the thing, Chris. I remember your post from like in the last week or so, and not every Sai King story is for everybody. And I mean, shit, man, there's no reason to be like, almost like feel bad if you didn't get into it because there's a lot of Stephen King books that, while I found appreciation within them over time, I still can't say that I was over the moon for them or maybe that I even like them that much. But, as somebody who tries to, man, just polish and find, I mean, stuff like Lisi's story, I can't say that I was super into, although I found an appreciation. And everybody on here knows my thoughts about Bag of Bones and Dreamcatcher and various others. So I guess I'll give it like another minute or two before I just get things rolling proper. My local dude, Robert, what is up, man? Perfect timing. Just got out of Godzilla. Oh, I'm curious what you thought of it, Robert. And then Seth, In the Mouth of Madness rules too. Yes, somebody got it. I knew somebody was eventually gonna get it. This shirt, this was actually a gift from Cecil because he's awesome. Him and I talked about this shirt because we wanted to make it for our I always forget if we have a T Public or a T Fury. That's really bad on my part, but the Horror Show does have a t-shirt store. Okay, hey, love the shirt. My Stephen King collection is ridiculous, so this stream sounds right up my alley. The Horror Man, so stoked that you're gonna be here for this, man. Malito says, I absolutely adore the atmosphere and the vibe of the whole book. The nostalgia, the socio-cultural background, but most of all, as I've said many times in this group, I love Low Men and Yellow Coats. And that's the thing, for any Tower junkies, Low Men and Yellow Coats is like, it's essential reading, especially because like at that particular point, we still hadn't even seen 5, 6, and 7 yet as far as the Dark Tower proper goes. And this was right before King's accident. And so this is, especially the very end when the Low Men start to show up and when you hear more from Brodigan about about Ka/Destiny, as he describes it to Bobby. And I mean, man, and they mentioned the gunslinger by name. He's like, but there is a gunslinger, and they've reached the borders of Endworld. And it's so good. I adore this book so very much. Okay, Morgan Tucker, thanks for the friend request, yo. What's up, yo? What's going on? And Dino, pleasure, sir. Always. If you guys have not subscribed to the Late Horror Show or to Willis Screedia, I've had the pleasure and the honor to actually be discussing weekend box office numbers and / predictions for the forthcoming weekend for the last couple Mondays with both Dino and with CP. And Show Business and After Hours. They're both some really fun programs, and I've been very stoked to spend some time there, and I look forward to more in the future. All right, Chris Bethel, I don't feel bad, as you say, it's all subjective. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I personally feel a little weird, Chris, at times where it's like everybody tells me I'm supposed to like something because they all love the hell out of it, and I'm just like, I'm not feeling it. And it's not even so much feeling bad, it's just you feel like out of the loop or kind of, I don't know. That's the way I feel about It Follows. That's the way I feel about certain horror films that everybody just loves the hell out of, and I'm just like, I don't see what the big goddamn deal is. But yeah, so maybe feeling bad was an improper terminology, man, just to clarify. Okay, man, you coming to Italy would be crazy. Yeah, who knows, man? We'll see. We will see, brother Malito. Sarah Count says, long days and pleasant nights, Jaime. Gracias, and may yours be twice as long, madam. Fun. Yes, indeed. David Edmonds says, Low Men in Yellow Coats is phenomenal, amazing characters, and fantastic plot. And yeah, everybody knows, because here in a moment when I launch into the episode proper, that's what makes up the largest chunk of this. It's over half of the book, if I remember correctly, or right around half of the book. And so it's obviously front and center, and it's what introduces us to pretty much every character that we spend more time with in the other four stories. So, okay, Daniel Corey, what is up, sir? Top 3 novella for sure. Yeah, it's definitely one of King's best, and it's incendiary. All right, I'm 100% here to take notes, says Sarah. All right, and Jubel Yagyu, hello, greetings, long days and pleasant nights. All right, so we have 11 peeps in here. It's already been a few minutes, so I think that it is about time to start this crazy horse and pony show proper. So, all right, y'all, here we go. Long days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower, that tower of tones behind me, as Jaime and Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for some live palaver on Hey! Stephen King, that's right, my favorite author, and through an arduous journey of nearly 8 years, I read all of his stuff in published order, and boy, was it a hell of a fun opportunity. And through 160 episodes now of Hail to Stephen King over nearly 2.5 years, I have had the pleasure to share this palaver with all of you, and also through the Facebook and everything. So it's amazing, it is humbling, it is honoring, and it is super friggin' cool, man, just to have this experience and this opportunity. So for the uninitiated, I started earlier this year, and I actually guess I gave it a few test runs last year, but now it is an ongoing thing with the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group, Ka-Tet, as I so affectionately call it. We have over 500 members on there, and we basically have been doing a book of the month where usually I pick the book. But for the month of May, this was what the masses spoke for. This is what the masses wanted to see, and that's what they wanted to discuss. And this new bookmark I have, look at that sick bastard, provided it doesn't fall into the book. But yeah, this was a gift, if you can see it, from Isaac Bell. Isaac Bell was an artist who I got the chance to, is an artist. What am I saying was? Isaac Bell is an artist that I had the opportunity to interview at the Phoenix Fan Fusion, the artist formerly known as Phoenix Comic Con. But yeah, he bestowed upon myself, Cecil, and my lady, Katie, the like different metal bookmarks. It was really badass rad status, and he has also given previous things in years past to the horror show for us to auction off and to use his giveaways and stuff like that. So his artwork is amazing, and yes, Isaac, but he spells it Izikbell, Isaac Bell. So he was the one who hooked me up with this super rad status. Once again, maybe you'll see it a little bit better there. This Pennywise bookmark. Yeah, check out the blood on that face. But yeah, so back to the matter at hand. I had chosen every previous entry, and the reason that we did a vote for May was because in the year of 19, which is what we are in the midst of, there are more Sai King anniversaries as far as like golden anniversaries. And so for a golden anniversary, I always use that as a division of 5 or 10 years. So if it's something that's a 5-year, a 10-year, a 15-year, 20-year, 30, whatever. If it's in those like divisions, that's where I consider it a golden anniversary of sorts, or at least a pivotal one. And there are more of those this year than there are months for us to discuss everything. And so for the few months where there are duplicate big-time anniversaries, I decided to throw all of those onto a poll on the Hail to Stephen King Facebook, and that's where, yes, the masses spoke, and Hearts in Atlantis narrowly beat out Revival. Revival is going to be one of the books of the month later this year. I put it on a credit card. I'm like, PayPal credit, $125. Oh, that seems like a lot to splurge on for a Sai King specialty, but you can't see the bottom level where I have all of my Cemetery Dance stuff and the stuff from PS Publishing and Subterranean Press that I have amassed over the years. And so, yeah, I love Revival enough where despite the hefty price tag for a beautiful, oversized, slipcase hardcover with all kinds of new illustrations, there was no way I was going to be able to turn that down. So Revival will be one of, since it finished in second place, it's definitely going to be one of the later books of the month here in the year of 19. And I will also, at the end of this broadcast, be announcing what the book of the month is for June, since we are just starting June today. But yeah, everybody wanted Hearts in Atlantis, and with good reason. And so for those who maybe don't know as much about this, I'm going to try not to go super, super spoilery, but it's tough really not to. I know a lot of people are probably more familiar with this book if you have seen the film adaptation that was done by Castle Rock Entertainment, Rob Reiner's company that did a lot of different Sai King adaptations from Misery to Dolores Claiborne. I mean, they did Hearts in Atlantis, obviously. I want to say they did Shawshank as well. I want to say they also did The Green Mile. So, yeah, Reiner is a big constant reader / Tower junkie, I would imagine. And so that's why he formed, he directed Stand By Me. So he's definitely a very dedicated and, the affectionate, sentimental Sai King reader and, friend of our beloved author. And so, yeah, Castle Rock Entertainment did, in my estimation, a very solid adaptation that had Anthony Hopkins as Ted Brodigan, and it had the late, great Anton Yelchin in one of his earliest roles as Bobby Garfield, and I really like that adaptation. I think it's a stellar film. It's a bummer that they basically whittle it down to story 1 and story 5, but Hearts in Atlantis, the actual title story, the second in the anthology, is really a completely different beast in a lot of ways, and it's the one that it mirrors King's college experience. And so for that reason, it's like, okay, if it's mirroring King's college experience and really the only character that shows up in it that's in, low men in Yellow Coats, you really, you've got Carol Gerber, and there's references to other people and whatnot. So there's references to Sully, there's references to Bobby Garfield, but it stands on its own as the just first semester of the college experience, and that's why they're actually making Hearts in Atlantis, and they've been working on it for a little while. If I'm not mistaken, it's in post-production. There's a movie called Hearts that is just about that particular novella, and I'm so stoked to read it, so stoked to watch it, because after rereading it and then listening to Sai King doing the audiobook, I was just like, damn, it's so pivotal as far as the 60s experience goes, and the whole counterculture of the time. And really, after reading Hearts in Suspension, which is the Stephen King nonfiction that has all the essays from classmates and friends and contemporaries when he was at the University of Maine at Orono, it was so intriguing rereading that story and just seeing all of the parallels in King's life, from the roommate wanting to be a dentist to to all kinds of different situations with friends, and the coffee house playing folk music, all this different stuff. It's really, really dope. And so I can see why that whole story is amended, because really it's Bobby's story at the end of the day in the film. And so you get some of that flavor when he goes back to Connecticut for Sully's funeral in the fifth and the final story. And that's what they meld together in the Hearts in Atlantis film. The only thing that they really had to scoop out, which it would have made people very confused, is all of the tower connections. And there are some serious Dark Tower connections in this, from mentions of the Crimson King to, talking about Ka, talking about, they talk about other worlds than these. And, Brodigan has some really interesting things that he says to Bobby in this book that just really expand the richness of the Tower universe. When the Lowmen are finally, when the Lowmen finally track down Brodigan, and he says to them, there's a gunslinger, and he's on the verge, he's on the border of Endworld, and all this other stuff. I mean, it's interesting, though, because I bought this book a few years ago for my middle brother, who's probably my best friend, love him to death. We very, very close. And he's wanted to get into Stephen King stuff, but he read Pet Sematary, loved it. And I want to say he's read The Shining and a couple others, but he hasn't gotten into any of the Dark Tower stuff. And so the one thing that Johnny Boy, as I so affectionately call my middle brother, he's like, there's a lot of stuff at the end of this story that I didn't really understand, and I think that maybe for the just uninitiated person who doesn't understand anything about the Dark Tower universe, he still hasn't finished the book. And he said that in some ways it was because that threw him off the scent, and he wanted to understand, all of the references being made near the end of this story. But since he's not a Tower junkie and he hasn't read any of the Dark Tower books, it kind of went over his head. So that's really maybe one of the only setbacks. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. It's a setback for readers who aren't that familiarized with the extent of the Sai King multiverse of sorts. So, yes, I'm going to breeze back through some of the comments since I see we have almost 30 people here now, which is very exciting and very cool. It is a pleasure and an honor to have all of you here for Palaver. So let's skip back. I am 100%. Okay, I saw that. White Tim, yo, Hearts in Atlantis can't be 20 years old. Yeah, 1999. Now, we're a few months ahead of the actual anniversary, but that's because of the fact that this year it celebrates its 20, and it was voted on by the Hail to Stephen King Ka-Tet. So there you go. 20 years old. Yeah, David Edmonds. Holy shnikes, right? That means I'm old. Yeah, that means we're all, hey, age is a state of mind, as I constantly say, and just let's keep it at that. My gosh, I was 6 when it came out. Well, Sarah, you're definitely, a lot younger than a lot of us, I would imagine. Very rad bookmark, my dude. Thank you so very much. All right, Sharon Beveridge has been my favorite author since I was a teen. Named my son Gage. Wow, that is definite dedication. Loved meeting you at Fan Fusion. Awesome. I wish I'll have to see who you were specifically, but thank you so very much for making it out to the event and stuff. And I was really, really blessed at Fan Fusion to sit in on Thursday for the other Stephen King panel that was going down and meet the incomparable, awesome Shane Hunt. He works for the library at the West Campus of Arizona State University, and he was the one leading the other Stephen King panel. And so, of course, this is me pulling back the curtain a little bit. I was like, I gotta go peep out the other Stephen King panel and make sure mine's on point, and so on and so forth, because I had PowerPoint presentation, and we're talking about the year of 19 and all of the releases both on television and in publication and in theaters coming later this year. And so I was kind of doing a reconnaissance mission, some spying of sorts, but I ended up really just liking all of the perspectives from the couple ladies who had not read a ton of Sai King, and then from the other fellow library person who was there, a gentleman who was on the very far end. But Shane's knowledge and enthusiasm really shined through. And I just happened to ask him after he reached out to me on Instagram. I was like, hey, man, I have an empty spot on the Year of 19 panel on Saturday evening. Do you want to be a part of it? And he very graciously obliged, and he was a tremendous addition, so much awesome knowledge, and I can't wait for all of you guys to see the Year of 19 panel that I was very humbled and honored to lead at Phoenix Fan Fusion, the artist formerly known as Phoenix Comic-Con. It's going to be an episode on the show very, very soon, so look forward to that. All right. White Tim says, I hate I missed out on the IT 25th anniversary edition. Yeah, man, I was very fortunate to pre-order that long before it ever went to publication. And okay. Willard Von Wilkins, Fuego, love you, man. All hail the king. Amen. All hail the word slinger, as I like to say. I didn't know this movie was a King movie. Says Nate. Yeah, a lot of people actually don't know this. There's all of King's dramatic work, I think, that has as a phrase, credit to my little brother Johnny Boy for the phrase donuts. So Hearts in Atlantis has donuts for horror. Same with Stand By Me. Same with, The Shawshank Redemption. And so these are ones where people are often so shocked when you tell them that Stephen King wrote it because he has the horror stigma. Everyone's like, oh, that's the guy who did Carrie and The Shining and Pet Sematary and It, and so they make that misery. They make the connection with the horror automatically. And then when you just kind of bring to their attention, the dude writes really good, heartfelt, dramatic stuff too, it comes as a surprise to a lot of people. And I just love dropping knowledge on peeps for that. All right, Chris Bethel says, my son is watching with me. Could you give him a shout out? His name is Aries Blade, and his 13th birthday is Thursday, 666. Wow, Chris, that's pretty rad status, man. Well, Aries Blade, happy early birthday, little man. Feliz cumpleaños, 13, jumping into the teenage years, man. You've got a lot of formative stuff that's about to transpire, man. But keep your head on straight and read as much as you can because it'll expand your mind. It's really important. Yeah, that's a really rad name, Sarah. I totally agree. Okay, Nay, the movie is solid. Yeah, the movie is very solid, Daniel. I totally agree. David Edmonds says, happy birthday for Thursday. Yes, thanks everybody for chiming in, giving some love. All right, enjoy your channel. I love your Phoenix channel, says Nay. Yeah, I mean, I'm a desert dweller, as I often say. Deadly desert, if you're going to catch the Return to Oz reference. But yeah, man, I'm very happy to be repping the state of the AZ. It's been very good to me over the years. Okay, all right, White Tim says, I'm not Fuego, but yes, thank you everybody for chiming in. Muy importante. There's a Hearts movie, says David Edmonds. Yeah, Anthony Hopkins, Anton Yelchin. It's very, very good. Okay, all right. Also, I feel so old because I just realized that I turned 13 in 2006. Sarah, you're not old. You're 10 years younger than me, so let's leave it at that, okay? The movie really shows Anthony Hopkins' range. Compare his performance here with Hannibal Lecter, great casting. Yeah, I mean, I've always really loved Anthony Hopkins, and I feel like he's always kind of exemplified that range, but he does a tremendous job as far as just being just warm and caring and loving in this film. Okay, yeah, Chris, you and I are like just about the same age, man. So there you go. There you go. I'm just going to take a quick little sip of my little South Park cup here. All right. We're almost caught up and almost ready to just start proper discussion of the first entry here. Okay, 24 in 2006. All right, everybody's doing birthday stuff now, which is cool. Okay, Robert, I was curious what else you had to say, man. This is still on my list to read. I just started the Dark Tower series about halfway through and I'm hooked. Robert, that's awesome, man. And this one fits in between books 4 and 5, and it comes short. It's really interesting because it comes shortly before Black House, and if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong because it was a long day at work, but this is where the idea of breakers to break the beams was initially thrust into just the whole King verse, and the fact that we know there's this Dark Tower that holds together every layer and level of all of these different alternate universes and basically all of existence in every intertwining dimension or whatever, however you want to basically put it. But this is where we find out that there's these gifted people like Ted that they are basically, because of these psychic powers that they have, their abilities are being used to slowly break these beams that all interconnect to the Dark Tower and hold together all of these different fabrics of existence and stuff like that. And then they explore that even further in Black House and then in Dark Tower 5, Wolves of the Kala, when you find out about the children being taken and the other ones being thrown back roots. And this book is so important, even for just the few details that really the only essence of that stuff that you get is in the first story, Low Men in Yellow Coats. And it's funny, after rereading this the other day, I was like, I would love to start a punk band called Low Men. I think that would be badass. And then, of course, somebody's already done it. Can't say I'm surprised. Corey Novak! My dude, what is up, man? I'm so stoked that you enjoyed that signed shirt that we sent out to you. And thank you so very much for the constant support. You are the shit, my man. Brady Wilson, just wanted to pop in and say hi. Also, great book. Brady, yes, indeed it is. Sarah says, I admittedly need to finish the movie. Okay. Scott Baker, so very happy to see you in here briefly, man. Hopefully you can stay and, give some interesting insight about this one. Love this book. Enjoyed all of it, but Low Men is a favorite out of any King short story. It's easily one of the strongest. You're totally right, man. Also looking for a cool Stephen King-related gift for my dad for Father's Day. Don't want to have to sacrifice an arm and a leg. Any ideas? I would say get him a King book. Get him, go to some sort of resale store, a bookstore or whatever, or go on Amazon and go through the Amazon sellers. You can find stuff super, super cheap in the Amazon marketplace. Get him a used Stephen King book that you think he would like. That's my recommendation. Anytime you can pass along, just somebody to read, I'm all for it. Misery seems contemporary today with how fans hate what writers are doing to their favorite characters. Yeah, I agree, which is why Finders Keepers is so amazing, and you all need to read Finders Keepers. Seriously. It takes some of those Misery themes and just runs with them in the modern age, and it's so great. So, Scott says, Ted is a fascinating character. I'd love to see King revisit him at some point. Yeah, I mean, it's cool that he revisited when he did, for, Dark Tower 7 and whatnot. So that was really, just getting to see Sheeny and Ted and some of these others again later in the Tower cycle was really, really cool. Has he read all the books? Okay, yes. Okay, they're having their palaver together. Definitely Scott, an awesome character. Will and Grace did a Misery-esque episode that was deeply uncomfortable. I had a variety trying to get all the books. All right. Let's talk about the aforementioned Low Men in Yellow Coats. And first and foremost, man, I love this cover with the lost pet thing that they have there. And I love just the weird code in which the Low Men in Yellow Coats use to kind of correspond with each other as they're trying to track down Ted, and they do the same thing with Callahan in book 5, as you find out, which is really interesting, and trying to find him. And it's super cool and just kind of amusing to some degree. And the fact that they're like, we're looking for our mangy pet Ted, blah, blah, blah. He's a feisty guy, but, we still love him. If you find him, bring him back, to this address and so on. It's pretty funny. And a poignant way to start things out is the fact that at the very beginning, you've got the prisoner, and this is something that shows up. These quotes are big time in the second story. What do you want? Information. Whose side are you on? That would be telling. We want information. You won't get it. By hook or by crook, we will. And the prisoner, that's an Iron Maiden song, and it actually takes that bit of dialogue too, which is really dope. And then Lord of the Flies, which is so big and ingrained into the storytelling here, especially in Low Men in Yellow Coats. Simon stayed where he was, a small brown image concealed by the leaves. Even if he shut his eyes, the sow's head still remained like an after-image. The half-shut eyes were dim with the infinite cynicism of adult life. They assured Simon that everything was a bad business. When's the last time anybody read Lord of the Flies? Holy shit, man, this just really made me want to reread Lord of the Flies, was doing this. And then, for me, the most telling quote, even though it's only 3 words and it's from Easy Rider, and a lot of people feel like it summarizes and epitomizes just the failed counterculture movement of the late 1960s and early 70s. We blew it. Yeah. Man, if you haven't seen Easy Rider, y'all, it's awesome. Even if the end of the movie is just a weird psychedelic sex sequence in a graveyard, it's such a damn good book. So, yes, the proceedings here basically started in 1960. They had a stick sharpened at both ends. Yeah, that's a Lord of the Flies reference. Low Men in Yellow Coats. And it's essentially 1960. It's Connecticut. You've got Bobby Garfield. You have his pseudo-girlfriend, Carol Gerber, the Gerber baby, as the bullies that pick on her at a couple different points call her. And then you've got Sully, who they are basically this little trio. And Sully is the more athletic one who Carol ends up dating later after Bobby relocates out of state. And then you've got, Bobby, our skinny, well-meaning, well-to-do protagonist who becomes friends with Ted Brodigan, this mysterious man who moves into the unit above them. And he's like, 11, 12 years old, if I remember correctly, because he has a birthday at the very beginning of this story. And just the friendship that he forms with Ted is so endearing because of the fact that his father died when he was very, very young, and Bobby doesn't really remember his father at all. The only memories of his father that he gets is the weird way that his mother tries to ingratiate him and just program him to hate his father the way she does for whatever reason. And she has memories that she focuses upon, and she just does not see any positive recollections. She has just focused upon negative this, negative that, and she's really just blown a lot out of proportion. She has retrofitted things to just make her former husband and, the man who she is widowed from to be just a real piece of trash. And as Bobby finds out in one pivotal scene, later on in the story, when his mom is out of town on this business trip, he gets some clarification about the fact that his mother may have been blowing some things out of proportion or basically completely lying in just the way she is presented. The father that Bobby doesn't even remember. So I had some notes that I put together as I was reading this one, just because there was a few quotes that stuck out to me specifically. I mean, the one that I've actually put on my social media, and it popped up in my memories on the Facebooks, and the only thing that gets me on Facebook is the Hail to Stephen King Ka-Tet, the Facebook group. But of course, I sign on and I see a memory, and it says, good books don't reveal all their secrets at once. And that's the really cool friendship that Ted and Bobby form, even though Bobby's mom is really suspicious and like, is he a hetero? Has he made you do anything? And blah, blah, blah. But, Ted is in hiding from these emissaries and like henchmen of the Crimson King, who in the Dark Tower mythology is like the biggest of the bad. And it's discussions for another video, and I've done it so much already about the fact that the Crimson King at this particular just stage in the Tower of storytelling, I was frightened and fascinated. And then when you finally get to him in book 7, it was a major disappointment, and you're like, wow, Flag was underserved, and so on and so forth. But at this time in the storytelling, man, the Crimson King is the biggest of the bads, is just utterly terrifying in a lot of ways in my estimation. And the fact that he can send out, all of these, just nasty, men who are hidden in disguises, to go out and, try to track down this escape breaker in Ted Brodigan. So he's laying low, and he forms this friendship with Bobby. And really, the building blocks of it are formed from Ted introducing a love of literature to Bobby. And so that's such a Stephen King thing to do, to have the reason they become friends and become close, not just because Bobby was searching for a father figure that he didn't have, but also because of the fact that they connected on this level of storytelling and the beauty of it. And the way that, his mom, as a birthday present, she's not going to get him the bicycle Bobby wants. She goes really cheap as fuck and gives him her adult library card so he can go check out whatever the hell he wants. And he's getting Asimov and all kinds of cool sci-fi and, different stories and stuff like that. But really, the connection between Ted and Bobby forms because of the fact that he's like, I have a book for you that you are absolutely going to love. He gives him Lord of the Flies, and Bobby's initially hesitant. He's just like, if I'm going to be reading for pleasure, better be fun and better enjoy it. But yeah, he ends up he's transported to the island where all of these young kids are, basically getting primal and crazy, and he absolutely adores the book. And so much of the themes and symbolism and stuff really pops out later in this particular novella, because of the fact that Bobby's mom is involved with her boss, and she's trying to get into the real estate market. She's trying to be more than just like his assistant, secretary, whatever. And she goes on this business trip where she gets abused. And there's these corresponding beats of female abuse by men that, for a group of men to gang up and abuse a woman, it's horrible enough for one to do it. But for a group of men, 3 men, and there's the parallels of 3 men abusing 1 female. There's the 3 boys that abuse Carol and attack her and mess up her arm and everything and get it dislocated and, just beat her up because they're horrible pieces of fucking garbage. And then you have the 3 men who take Bobby's mom on this business trip of sorts, and Ted is watching Bobby, and they abuse her too. And Bobby's mom has all the suspicion and all of just the distrust of men already, because she has, this built up frustration about a husband that died prematurely and left her with bills and stuff like that. And that has grown into something. And then it just in turn becomes so much more of a hatred of that gender. And she barely even she loves Bobby, but she doesn't particularly like him. It's a weird dynamic between the two of them. But how is she going to feel about Ted Brodigan when she comes home from being abused by the 3 men that she went on this trip with, and then she sees Carol, which is Bobby's little, girlfriend, like the Gerber baby, after getting abused by other men herself, and then in a precarious, compromising position with 2 other men? It's just, there's all of these parallels that are really fascinating to me, and just really kind of sickening and upsetting that we had to have these 2 bits correspond with each other. But on top of that, we also have the fact that, Bobby he's able to kind of take on some of Ted's abilities whenever, but it's almost like a push, or like, I don't know, anytime Ted can sense, the fact that the low men are close, Bobby almost gets like a residual high, so to speak, of that ability. And he gets some of Ted's ability, and there's a really cool beat in particular where they go to this like kind of amusement park type place, and there's this card shark who's doing all of this shuffling, and Bobby's able to, use these abilities and see what the cards are going to be and just kind of sense them. And it's just very cool. It's more of these themes that we've seen explored with everything from, Carrie to Firestarter to just the touch that, characters like Jake have in the Dark Tower and whatnot. It's really cool. And I think there's an interesting discussion as well where Ted is talking about some stories have good writing and some stories have some books, I should specify, have good writing and some books have a good story. And it's usually one or the other. Like, it's very eloquently written and yet the story's not particularly compelling. Or the story's really, really good, but just the writing and the language is more pedestrian, maybe not as refined. And he's like, it is truly special when you get good story and good writing together in the same book. And I'll be honest, that's not always the case in every Stephen King book, but the ones where it truly happens, The Stand and It and Pet Sematary and Revival and Doohickey and, Dark Tower 3 and 4. These are books for me where the language was beautiful, and yet the story that was being presented and the themes. And so that's the thing. Like, stories like, Bag of Bones and Dreamcatcher have great writing, but I just don't particularly like the story. Or, for instance, you've got great. The same goes for Lisi's story and for various others that I can't say are some of my personal favorites. But yes, I found that was an interesting comparison that King made in this, was talking about good writing versus good story. Just the way the low men are described, about just as being these guys that would be, drinking cheap whiskey and with the nasty, like, slick back hair and the stench of them. And he describes them very much as like the kind of guys you would see, like Dick Tracy, that rogues gallery of different, schmucks that Dick Tracy went after. And that's very much the way that the low men have always seemed to me. They have very much a noir type vibe to them, and I've just always appreciated, especially the way that, things are described here. And all things serve the beam, as Ted is saying when he gets in these little trances of his. This is such a Tower-tastic book, man. I love it so very much. A low man in blue shorts, that was an amusing way that Bobby, once he kind of got the description of what the low men in yellow coats were, he sees a guy at the little like bar / card spot / hangout area, where he gets this clarification from people who actually knew his father, and they're like, yeah, your father wouldn't buy a drink for a drunk, and he was actually a really good guy, and he didn't lose tons of money playing cards. And so, fascinating. One thing, Bobby's mom, has a lot of phrases she utters over and over and over. Life isn't fair. She says it all the damn time, and it really epitomizes just the negativity of her outlook. And it's a bummer to hear, and saying stuff like, "I trust him about as much as I could swing a piano." I thought that was a really funny line. There are other worlds than these. It is mentioned like to the T at one particular point, and the destiny of Ka, the passing of the torch from Ted's abilities, and just that little push to Bobby, I thought was great. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we get the Breakers and the Crimson King aspect. Direct mention of the Gunslinger, as I mentioned earlier. The reach of the Crimson King for me is the one thing that I really wanted to mention here, because upon this reread, I kind of feel like certain things have to happen in this story, and for them to happen, it's very much in like Insomnia, for instance, where the reach of the Crimson King just can like bypass dimensions and levels of the tower and all of this craziness. And very much what happens with Edipno, I want to say, in Insomnia, is the fact that the reach of the Crimson King goes to the trio of guys, in my opinion, that abuse Bobby's mom. And so it's the abuse of them that sets into motion the fact that she comes home pissed off and freaking out, and then when she sees Ted, and she contacts the low men and all that other stuff, and gets them on Ted's ass, and he finally gets, taken by them. And also, that situation wouldn't have happened if not for the fact that those three men under the control of the Crimson King as well, presumably, had, the three boys who go and abuse Carol. If not for the three boys abusing Carol, like I said earlier, that sets up into motion the situation where Ted can be trying to put her dislocated arm back into play. And, the fact that, Bobby's mom is all freaked out and just in this damaged state after being abused by those men and comes back and is going to be even more distrustful of seeing Ted. The reach of the Crimson King is very, very far. And they even have a little drawing of the eyeball, which is really dope. And so it was such a great reread. And I'm glad that I read it and listened to it. William Hurt actually does the stories that Stephen King doesn't read on the audiobook. This is one of the best Sai King audiobooks I've ever checked out because of the fact that there's the musical aspect as well, which I look forward to mentioning once we jump into Hearts in Atlantis, the second story. And so, yes, the bulk of the time was spent discussing this. I know we're already 40 minutes in, but yes, Low Men in Yellow Coats, it's amazing and also sad in the fact that it shows what set into motion the downward spiral, especially of Bobby Garfield, but also Carol Gerber as well. And after this summer, after losing this father figure, after having just the tension with his mom become rougher and more apparent, Bobby, as he's like, after this, after this particular summer and the experiences that transpire within it, Bobby just turns into a bad kid, man, stealing, fighting, smoking, and all of this different stuff, getting arrested. And yeah, and then Carol, as we find out in stories 2 and 3, and her involvement with an extreme group in the counterculture movement that ends up, setting off bombs and killing people inadvertently, obviously, but the extremism is really, really apparent. And so it's like, I don't know, Sully almost, being the one who ends up in Vietnam and everything, and we catch up with his character in the 4th story. It's like, of that trio, even though Sully, went off to YMCA camp and stuff and wasn't there for the really pivotal pieces in Low Men in Yellow Coats, it's just really interesting in the stories thereafter where we catch up with one character and catch up with another character and catch up with another character, and then Bobby, and then finally to Bobby in the 5th and final story. So that's about all that I have to say so far about this story. I could gush on further, but yes, you guys can see that time is dwindling, and I don't want to be on here for too crazy long, but let's catch up on some comments, shall we? Because it was roaring and going there for quite a while. All right, admittedly needs to finish. All right, definitely Scott, an awesome character. All right, I think I'm back to about where we were. Ted Brodigan. Oh, Ryan, what's up, buddy? So glad that you got to make it over, man. Okay. Ted Brodigan is one of my favorite characters. Yeah, he's fantastic. There's a reason he reemerges. Lord of the Flies is one of King's favorites, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, yeah. See, if I'm not mistaken, he's referenced it in other books beyond this one. David Edmond says, yeah, King talks about Lord of the Flies as the first book he got totally lost in, and that's the thing. This book is so much King, like, writing. It's very semi-autobiographical. The fact that, in 1960, the character of Bobby is like, 11, 12 years old, something like that. And then you fast forward to 1966 when Hearts in Atlantis takes place. That was the year that King started in college himself. King never went to Vietnam, but I'm sure he talked with a lot of different, friends and contemporaries that either were there or just felt the reach of it. Sky says, I'm surprised I never heard of this story. It's fantastic. You need to check it out. It's very, very good. Love the Lord of the Flies shout out in this book. Yep, says Daniel Corey. You are not a true New Englander unless you know at least 3 people named Sully. That's funny. Ryan says, love the shirt. Thanks, man. Yeah, gift from Cecil. This is a shirt that we kind of came up with together. Sully, Godsmack is from New England. Yeah, he is. That's funny, Corey. I didn't even think about that till right now. Okay. Chris Bethel says, is this whole book set in the 60s and 70s? I do like how King likes to set some of his stories in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Just watched The Langoliers for the first time, and a line from it immediately made me think of 11/22/63. Well, this one jumps around. So the first story in this collection of novellas, and it is really a collection of novellas / short stories because the first couple are definitely novella sides, being Low Men in Yellow Coats, Hearts in Atlantis, then there's Blind Willie, and then the last 2 are probably like short story status. You've got Why We're in Vietnam, and then The third one is, the fifth one. This is bad that I can't remember. Heavenly Shades of Night Are Falling. It's Twilight Time. That's a song that I have noticed pops up in the Dark Tower. It pops up here. It is such a beautiful song. God, I do adore it. And even in the audiobook, they play it at the very, very end. It's so sweet. It's up there with Earth Angel as like one of my favorite songs from that particular era of just that soulful, almost like slightly swingy, ballady kind of it's fantastic. But yeah, man, so Chris, the first story, 1960, second story, 66, third story, the year I was born, 83, and then stories 4 and 5, they take place both in 1999, and they're like right next to each other, one after the other as far as timeline goes. Timeline jumps all over as Daniel is clarifying. Scott Baker, if King were to revisit Broad again, I'd be interested to hear more of his backstory. I'd like to know more about how he ended up as a breaker. Exactly. Dude, Scott, that is a really, really good suggestion because of the fact that Ted even mentions when he's talking with the low men at the end of that story, he's like, guys like me, we were basically born to do this, and it makes you kind of get the vibe that maybe he was taken at perhaps a very young age, to actually start this breaking process. Liz Garfield is one messed up woman. Bobby is out for a positive. Yes, exactly, man. I honestly, upon this reread, I disliked her the first time, and then I think they toned her down just a little bit in the film. But ladies, pardon me, but she's a bitch, man. She is a big-time bitch, and every woman has a little bit of bitch in her, or every guy's a little bit of asshole in him. But man, Bobby Garfield's mom, she's a bitch with a capital B exclamation point, man. She really, really is. So anyway, maybe in a similar vein as Dinky, yeah. And I would think, Scott, you're probably right. And Dinky, as we know, is from a short story called Everything's Eventual that is housed in the collection of short stories called Everything's Eventual. He also pops up in the back books of the Dark Tower. I think it's just 7, if I'm not mistaken, when Ted and Sheeny show up. So Sarah has returned. All right. Now, the part in the amusement park is fantastic. Love that scene. Reminded me of Johnny in the Dead Zone. Very much so. Good pull, Sir Edmonds. I love it. Hell yeah. One of my favorite scenes. Okay. All right. I think I'm nearly caught up. Low men are offspring of humans bred with tahine. That's right. I knew somebody was going to eventually get into it. All right. Welcome back, Sarah. Thanks, Chris. Audiobook is great. Yeah, Ryan is totally good. I'm glad that this month I read the book, and then I also listened to the audiobook later in the month because I was just trying to refamiliarize myself because I read the book like way early in the month, and I get caught up with my Star Wars coverage on my personal channel and all this other stuff. And so I'm glad that over the last couple days I listened to the audiobook, and hearing King read his own stuff is just such a friggin' pleasure, man. It just warms my heart. It makes me so incredibly happy. Okay. Sharon Beveridge says, feeling a need to check out the audiobook as well. No, yeah, it's very, very good. Dan Orlando, hi Fuego, remember me. The name looks very familiar, sir. I will need a little clarification, though, because I see so many names. Yes, William Hurt and Stephen King tag teaming this. Hurt is such a great actor, and I just love King reading his own stuff. It's fantastic. All right. I read this before the Dark Tower series. Definitely going to need to reread it again. Yeah, that's the thing. When you have read stuff like Insomnia or Hearts in Atlantis before you've actually explored the Tower series proper, when you get reacquainted with these stories, it is like, it's such fan service, and damn is it so fun. I love it. Okay, get some clarification. Dan says, I was the guy that started my Stephen King journey during the Carrie live stream. Well, I'm curious how far you are, Dan. That is extremely exciting because Carrie was the last one that I did, and I know you mentioning that you felt compelled, after that to really get it rolling, and that's super exciting for me. I'm almost envious in some ways of those who are just starting the journey, as opposed to having been finished with it for so long, and now I'm just like, when the hell is the Institute coming out? God damn it! So, all right, Maximilian, Maxie, I love a goofy movie. What's up, man? I had a rough day at work, and I'm glad to hear from you and the King. I'm so glad that you were here to have palaver with us. So very just privileged and honored to have your presence. That's okay. Salem's Lot, it's pretty slow reading. Yeah, Salem's Lot starts out a little slow, but once it gets going, Dan, it's a slobber knocker, to quote old JR. All right, Chris Bethel says, I hope so. Everybody read Dog Like. Was that not just the goddamnedest thing, everybody? Anyone who was in that live stream, boy, that was something else. Okay, so now we get to the second story, which is Hearts in Atlantis. And the title Hearts in Atlantis is actually an interesting combination of the fact that you have this main character, okay? And our main character, Tim, if I recall correctly, is the name of our lead kid who is basically going, like, he's starting at University of Maine, Orono, and, oh boy, I just want to make sure I've got the name right. There. It's gonna take, man. And the Platter's Twilight Time just shows up all over the place. I swear, it's like all throughout this, and I just love that story oh so very much. Buck Johnson, killer president, U.S. out of Vietnam. Yeah, this definitely is very much of the era. That is for damn sure. But okay, so essentially, our main protagonist kid, Hearts, is the sheer fact that when he is starting at the University of Maine at Orono, everybody up on the third floor is getting, all the boys are getting addicted to playing Hearts, chasing the bitch, as they call it. And I've never played Hearts, but I was very intrigued the first time I read about this, and then even more so now. I want to kind of at least take a stab at the game because it's very fun, or seems very fun, I should say. But the Atlantis aspect is because they felt like they were trying to make this utopia Atlantis, like in the Donovan song, and I love that Donovan song. Way down below the ocean, where I want me, she may be. It's a great song, man. If y'all haven't listened to Donovan, it's beyond Mellow Yellow and the Hurdy-Gurdy Man and so much other stuff. But really, our main dude gets involved with Carol Gerber in her first year at college. They work together, and it's just so funny how our lead is essentially the King parallel. As I mentioned earlier in the live stream, King also had a aspiring dentist as a roommate. King also, got involved in activism, and just the parallels are really legitimately fascinating here. And it's a simple coming of age story, but it's got very interesting multi-layered facets. And unlike Low Men in Yellowcoats, this doesn't really have any tower connective tissue. It's really about the college experience, and it really makes me think in some ways of a story that I've been working on, a script actually for quite a while, that is essentially about how formative the time after high school is and becoming an adult and so on and so forth. But I don't want to give up all of my secrets and details because y'all have to stay tuned for that when I finally unleash it. But yeah, so they all get addicted to Hearts, all these boys, and the grades are slipping, and some of them are flunking out, and some of them are, flunking out. And it's a good time to be a girl, as Carol says, because of the fact that if you were a guy and you weren't in college keeping your grades up, you were going to end up flunking out and getting drafted and sent to Vietnam to, die in the rice paddies, essentially. So, excuse me, it's a great story. It really, really, truly is. And Carol actually reveals later on that as she's getting more involved with our main character, that after Bobby Garfield moved away, she started dating Sully. Yeah, she started dating the other guy in their little trio, and that was who she lost her virginity to, and all this other stuff. And they're still kind of involved when she's at college, but he's about to go off to Vietnam, and she, is getting more involved with activism herself. And so it's a really sweet story. It's got some very, very funny lines, but the one that they come back to time and time again, and as somebody who experienced a lot of heartache, in my younger years, especially at the beginning of college and stuff, spending a lot of time on and off with one woman in particular, many, 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 many years that I met right about this time in my life as well, is that hearts are tough. Most times they don't break, they just bend. And that's the resiliency is a really, really cool theme that is just returned to over and over. And just the camaraderie of the friends here, and the fact that our lead, he decides to, when he sees what's going down after Carol has decided to go back home, and she's not sure if she's going to return to the University of Maine, he's like, okay, I got to get my shit together. I have to start studying. I have to get my grades back up. I have to try to salvage my life. But whereas he stays involved in activism, but not to the extreme of Carol. Carol ends up, as we find out in our third story that I'm about to launch into, that she gets involved with some super extreme people, and there's bombings and just all kinds of nutsness, and there's an appearance of a Stephen King character of the utmost notoriety, which is very fun. So, I'm actually curious, everybody, what you think of Hearts in Atlantis, the title story here. I quite enjoyed it, and I'm going to jump to the comments here in a bit before we round out the final 3 stories, which are significantly shorter. So what do we got? I'm very, very curious. Curiosa and curiosa, to quote Alice, when she's 10 feet tall. All right. Sarah, I meant the voice actor. Okay, all right. Fuego's passion for books is cute as heck. Yeah, I just love what I love. I'm similarly passionate about certain bands and about certain filmmakers and things like that. But King is definitely like my love. I think Fuego said King himself and William Hurt. Yep, those are the ones who do the audiobook. And anytime King reads his own stuff, it's terrific. Ion Sky is Donovan's daughter. I have no idea who Ion Sky is, but based on that, I'll probably check her out and see who the hell she is. Okay. Anyone else think Blind Willie is the black sheep of this book in a huge way? Daniel, you're absolutely right, and I'm going to launch into that in just a moment as to why. King is a great follow on Twitter, says, "Nay, oh yeah, all of those pictures of Molly, the thing of evil, his corgi, are just pricelessly funny." Okay, Blind Willie was maybe the weakest of the collection, in my opinion. I don't know if this is. I mean, it's between that and Why We're in Vietnam in some ways, but Why We're in Vietnam, the Sully story, is the most directly connected in a lot of ways, more so than Blind Willie. But since nobody's really mentioning as much about Hearts in Atlantis, the story. All right. Chris says, Aries said thank you. He's really happy, and he's immediately said he's going to finish it after you said keep reading. Heck yeah, stay with it. Maintain is what I say, good sir. I may or may not stalk his Facebook fan page for pictures of Molly the Thing of Evil. I love those, Sarah. They are the absolute best. All right, thoroughly enjoyed the entirety of the book. Not a bad story in the bunch. And Scott, that's where I'm with you, because for me, even though it's almost like the Pulp Fiction aspect in some ways, in the aspect that all of the stories are their own kind of thing, but they all interlock, and I love that sort of storytelling. Whether it's Tarantino doing it, or even something like Go by Doug Liman. That's very Pulp Fiction-like, but still a ton of fun. Okay, if my eyes aren't kidding me, I believe I have the same edition of Salem's Lot as you. Yes, that's the illustrated edition, which also includes Jerusalem's Lot and One for the Road, which kind of loosely bookend in some interesting ways. Okay, personally, Molly reminds me of my own dog, says Sarah. Okay, that's cool. All right, well, since we're already almost an hour, I got to wrap this up because there is still an unboxing I have to do at the very end of this. I promised it in the social media post. So, Story 3, Blind Willie. Okay, everybody, there's a reason why Blind Willie seems so weird and out of place, and it's essentially about a guy who travels into New York City on the train from, a decent distance, and I'm trying to remember if he's in Connecticut or if he's somewhere else, but lo and behold, it's essentially somebody who you think would be going into an office and spending the entirety of the day there, but what does this particular character do? They put on army fatigues and like blind glasses and take on a cane and all this other stuff, and it's basically a fake panhandler. And that is what Willie, who was the one kid that was beat up by Carol back in our very first story, that she was like, he's actually nice, he's not as bad, he just gets easily influenced by Harold or Harry or whatever, the main kid who beats up Carol, that Bobby takes a baseball bat to and clobbers the flipping shit out of, with good reason, obviously. And but yeah, it's funny what he has become, So he still has the baseball glove that he stole from Bobby Garfield, and he's trying to cross out names and write different names over it. But he is essentially kind of assumed this. He's Willie Garfield more or less, and when he goes to Panhandle, and he's making ridiculous money, and he has this deal with this policeman who knows that he's a fraud and knows what he's up to, and so he's giving him a cut of the ridiculous amounts of money that he's panhandling in New York as this disabled, blinded, veteran. And yet he was actually in Vietnam, and he was in there with Sully of all people. Small flipping world, right? And so it's an interesting just kind of dichotomy of just how he's this wounded character that has all of this major guilt over what he did to Carol specifically, and yet he still has all the ghosts from Vietnam kind of being carried along with him as well. And this is where we find out, and that's why I had the bookmark here. This is where we find out that Carol actually got herself mixed up with an extreme anti-establishment counterculture group. The MS, it's like the militant students for the MSP, as they call it at one particular point, Militant Students for Peace. Interesting. And so there is a particular character by the name of Raymond Fiegler, who is apparently the head of this organization that goes on to set up a bomb. And this bomb is originally going to be set off when there is nobody at this particular place where they're doing job interviews for this chemical company that is presumably like involved with the American government making Agent Orange and different chemicals being used in Vietnam. So the bomb was supposed to go off at 6 a.m. when there was nobody there. It was supposed to be one of those like sending a message type bombs as opposed to actually hurting people. Well, lo and behold, the bomb doesn't go off when it's supposed to, when it goes off when there's actually all the people there and there's a bunch of wounded and dead. And this RF, this Raymond Fiegler, this is another appearance of none other than our buddy, the man in black, the walking dude, Randall Flagg, Martin, whatever the hell you want to call him. Yes, King's most iconic villain is in this. He's only described, but Flagg is in this book in one of his various guises, which I find very fascinating. And Carol's running around with him, presumably maybe even romantically involved. It's hinted at, none of it's confirmed one way or the other. And you are pretty sure that Carol is dead after this this fire, like bombing kind of thing. Yeah, at one point you think she has killed herself in a suicide pact. I mean, there is definitely just so many different instances. As Blind Willie is basically, you know, this kid who helped beat up Carol, you know, when he was a kid himself, you know, it's the guilt still lingers. And so that's why, yeah, after he gets out of his, you know, fake military garb and all the fake panhandling and everything, clear the throat a little bit. Yeah, he starts looking at all these newspaper clippings, and that's where you see the extremism that, you know, Bobby's first love and first girlfriend and everything, and also the, you know, guy that, the lady that our protagonist from Hearts in Atlantis, you know, lost his V card to. Yeah, it's just sad to see the routes that both Carol and Bobby ended up taking, and you're led to believe that Carol is pretty much dead. And so the third story, who's a fan of it? Obviously, some of you thought it was the weakest link, and the reason a lot of people, I think, find it the weakest link is because this was a story that was retrofitted to be a part of this. As King says in the afterword here, as I should specify, the afterword here is, where is it? An earlier and very different version of Blind Willie appeared in the magazine and Teos. Anyway, published in 1994. So 5 years before, Blind Willie in a very different form. And that's actually one that I want to try to track down, because I would like to see the original story and how it was initially conceived in comparison with how King drastically revamped it. And King has done this with a lot of stuff. There's segments of The Dark Tower that were published under different circumstances, massively revamped, just like, oh goodness, the lady killing her husband, and the name is totally escaping me, from the Tommyknockers. That was massively retrofitted from a short story that King had previously published. So he's done this a lot, where he will almost like preview a story in a very rough form for a magazine or whatever, and then he will take it and just drastically alter it to just fit the needs of a book and have it be a portion in that. So Blind Willie, guys, if there's any reason why you think it doesn't fit and it feels the strangest in the proceedings, that's why. It's because it was the only thing that was previously published in a different form, and then it was reworked to, you know, find a place in this story. So we're down to our last two. I'm just going to take one more look at the comments before we continue rattling things off. Hearts was an enjoyable read, but didn't blow me away. The plot didn't grab me like Low Man. Yeah, and that's because Low Man, I mean, it's much more epic. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more connected tissue, so it makes sense. Okay. Hearts is my second favorite after Low Man. Anyone who went to college can relate to how easy it is to stray from the path of the beam So many distractions. Agreed, Corey. You're totally right. Hello, everyone. Love plus peace equals information. Nick Oakes, my dude. How the hell are you, man? RJ Price, glad that you're here, man. I've been listening off and on while I'm working. So stoked to see you, man. Thank you so very much for jumping on. Good old RF told her how to become dim. Yes! Yes! Because you find her. She shows up in story 5, and it's that Ryan. Those are like the little Easter eggs for the Tower junkies like us, where it just like, man, it puts a big ass smile on your face. By the way, I love the Into the Mouth of Madness Stephen King reference shirt. Yeah, this shirt is like so much nerd-tastic stuff, like all colliding together. It's pretty sweet. All right, I can't say anything for a specific reason. Sarah Count says, oddly enough, this was the book that set me down the rabbit hole of buying Stephen King books for my dad's collection. Awesome. That is so very rad status to hear. So our 4th story is Why We're in Vietnam, and this is basically catching up with Sully, who was the 3rd in that particular trio that also was Bobby and was Carol. And so whereas The Blind Willie is in 83, this story actually jumps up to 99. And the quote that we have here is, when someone dies, you think about the past. And this is essentially Sully going to a funeral of somebody who, was in his battalion, his regime, his fleet, his whatever, basically his band of brothers in Vietnam in the rice paddies all getting killed and crazy. And you find out that he was there like right till the helicopters came in and evacuated Saigon when they were giving up on the war. And he got blown to shit and lost one of his testicles and his guts are falling out and all this other stuff. He still thinks about Carol all the time, which makes complete sense. And this is the one where it really just felt the most authentically, like looking back, like this is the first one where it's fully like in the present day, at least when this story was written. And it really epitomizes the "we blew it" aspect, the Easy Rider quote, more so than anything, because it was just like, I don't know. They say that there was so much power that they had to change things. And, all too often, many of them are still dwelling in Vietnam as opposed to looking towards the future and looking towards bettering things and all this other stuff. There's a part of them that is still back there and is never going to be able to escape, never going to be able to leave. And just talking about dying from the cancer, from the Agent Orange exposure, talking about the divorces, the alcoholism, just all of these lingering things that are still with all of the Vietnam vets. And obviously now, in the year of 19, many of them are very, very old and very, very removed. Many of them dead by now, unfortunately. But it's just a very sad, poignant story. And being told from Sully's perspective, he remembers Bobby. He has some Carol recollections, and also the fact that he ended up in the same troop as Blind Willie, to end up fighting alongside somebody who you were scared of as a kid and from the same hometown and all this other stuff. That's definitely Path of the Beam. That's Ka right there. That really legitimately is. And I would honestly say that it's a tie between 3 and 4 in my estimation for what may be the weakest link. But really, at the end of the day, I just read all of these as a constant stream of consciousness. And even though everybody likes to think of this as an anthology, and it's designated as one too, I don't think of this as an anthology, really. I do think of this as just one big narrative that just jumps perspective, over the course of it. It's I don't know, you can read some of them on their own as a standalone. You can read Hearts by itself, you can read Loman by itself. I think you can read all of these entries with the exception of maybe 4 and 5 are a little bit tougher to read on their own because they have so much callback and so much reference to our first story especially. But I really like Why We're in Vietnam. And upon this reread or re-listen, I should say, and once again, King reads Blind Willie and he reads Hearts in Atlantis, the title story. So I actually really like this one, even though it's one of the shortest. It's not the shortest. Like 4 and 5 are the absolute shortest. 4 is pretty brief, but okay, here we go. Been listening on and off. All right, accidentally closed out. Yep, good old RF. I can't say anything. All right, Sarah's really got a lot to say. Oddly enough, so I might have an odd fondness despite the fact that I'm still trying to get around to this book. Pet Sematary kind of scared me off. Pet Sematary scares a lot of people off because that book is effed up, yo. Let me rephrase that. I'm more of I like to listen to analysis of Stephen King's works, sort at the moment. Okay, coolness. So 4 and the whole just funeral aspect and everything. It ends so crazily, though, because of the fact that you find out that Sully, like, whereas Blind Willie has, like, the survivor's guilt and all this different stuff, with Sully, it's the fact that somebody in his troop killed this elderly Vietnamese woman, and he has seen her, like, dead ghost appear to him for decades since getting out. And for a while, it was frequent, and for a while, it kind of fell off, and he didn't see her very often. But as this story is winding down, and he's heading to this funeral, he starts seeing her again, and that is legit. It's like something you would have seen in, I don't know, Platoon or Hamburger Hill, or, I still contend Apocalypse Now is the best of all the Vietnam stories, but that's because it's based on the amazing Joseph Conrad book, Heart of Darkness. And if y'all have not read Joseph Conrad, Heart of Darkness, about the ivory trade, it is so, so bomb. I love that story, man. Utterly fantastic. But it's the end of the fourth story and what happens with Sully that bridges us right into the fifth and final story, where we catch back up with Carol under a different name and Bobby. And Bobby goes to Sully's funeral because Sully, apparently, as he's leaving one funeral of one of his old military buddies, he dies in an accident. And so, that's where Bobby, shows up to see him. And the only reason Bobby hears about it is because Ted Brodigan, who was taken away by the low men, sent him a letter telling him about it. And it's just very fascinating because that shows that Ted was able to get away again, obviously, from the low men and from, just the grasp of the Crimson King. And he meets Carol at the end, an aged Carol, who's under a different name because of all that activism and all the extreme stuff. She's presumed dead and obviously kind of faked her own death to some degree if she's living under a different name, and she doesn't even want him calling her that. But it is such a sweet, heartfelt finale to this story. Is all of these years later, we're talking almost 40 years later, for Carol and for Bobby to see each other again, and it's very, very short. The final story in this book, and yet there is a callback to Carol's time with our dude from Hearts in Atlantis, But this one is called "Come On, You Bastard, Come On Home." Heavenly shades of night are falling. It's twilight time. It's such a great song, and some people say that King doesn't always stick the landing, and you're right. He doesn't always stick the landing. For me, though, the end of this book is King magnificently just putting like a little bow on top. It's the sprinkles. It's the icing on the cake. It's a fantastic ending, and it gets you in the feels, y'all. It really, really genuinely does. And so I know I've spoiled some things. I tried to just graze over them if you have not read Hearts in Atlantis. Also, if you have not seen the adaptation and how it basically just cuts out all of the Dark Tower stuff, it's a great adaptation. It's a fantastic film. It's an even better book, and I cannot recommend it enough. And I'm very happy to be putting it back on the shelf here live on Hail to Stephen King. It's going just below The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon here. And yes, what a pleasure and an honor to share this palaver about such an amazing book with all of y'all. It's always so very cool. And I must say that the new book of the month for June is going to be none other than dun 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 dun. I actually don't think I want to take it off of the shelf because of the fact that I don't feel like disrupting all of it. But right down there, it is the first in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy. It celebrates its 5-year anniversary this month here in June. The book of the month for June is none other than Mr. Mercedes. If you want some awesome, grounded Stephen King storytelling, especially of the hard crime variety, Mr. Mercedes is fantastic. Even if I personally prefer Finders Keepers, the second in the Bill Hodges trilogy, I hope that all of you, as you joined me for Hearts in Atlantis this past month, will join me in a rereading in my case, of Mr. Mercedes. And as we also approach the third season of the television show on the AT&T Audience Network, myself, Marsha Parker, and Cecil Laird are also finally going to be doing our reviews of seasons 1 and 2 of Mr. Mercedes. But if you're a part of the Hail to Stephen King Ka-Tet and would like to take part in the June Book of the Month, right down there, y'all. It's going to be the first in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy. Mr. Mercedes. So I have been Jaime and Fuego, but there's one last thing that I have to do before we end this palaver, and that is because, as many of you know, I love Cemetery Dance publications, and Cemetery Dance they've taken lots of my money over the years, and with good reason. They have been doing the Doubleday years, so they did Carrie, they did Salem's Lot, and they also did The Shining, and soon I'm going to be getting my copy of Night Shift. But yes, everybody, I am so very stoked because I pre-ordered this about 2 years ago now, I want to say. And if I'm not mistaken, this is none other than, because I just finally got the notification about it in my email. This is their deluxe edition of Sleeping Beauties. Sleeping Beauties being a book that I must say I did not just absolutely adore or anything like that. I think it's one of the weaker Stephen King books. But this is a deluxe edition put together by Cemetery Dance, and this was co-written with Sai King's son, Owen, and I was blessed to actually go and see Owen and Steve in Chicago on this book tour, and they were talking Sleeping Beauties. Now, Sleeping Beauties has a great setup. It's essentially all about what if all of the women in the world started falling asleep. They basically get this like cocoon-like stuff on their faces once they fall asleep, and yet, if awakened, they basically are like the crazies in the George Romero movie, where they're like rabid and just like murderously maniacal, almost like Crossed in the Garth Ennis property, if you're familiar with that, and except without the nasty sexualism in it. But with the exception of the character of Eve and the whole, once the women fall into the Sleeping Beauty state, they are living in this like alternate weird dimension of sorts. Aside from that, I really didn't particularly love a lot of the characters in this story, and it's definitely not one of my Sai King favorites, but I am a Cemetery Dance completist when it comes to Stephen King, and so for that reason, I want y'all to be here with me while I'm opening this up, because it's been a very lengthy period of waiting, but I love Cemetery Dance and all of these amazing Sai King deluxe editions that they do. So yeah, let's check this out. Let's see what we got here. Let's get this plastic off. And just to streamline things, because I have already been going for nearly 80 minutes. So thanks to everybody who's been chilling throughout the duration here. Come on, y'all. Do I have to really do this? Yeah. Break out them things, Fuego. All right. Yeah. This is like legit. This is legit. Cemetery, you're not making my life very easy right now. Okay, finally. Chink in the armor, everybody. But I have been Jaime and Fuego. And you can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, where I have my own YouTube channel called Fuegotainment. So if you want to have some palaver with me that does not involve the king, and it's all about everything non-spooktacular, you basically just jump on YouTube and search Fuegotainment, or if you go to youtube.com/Jaime and Fuego, just like I spell my moniker that has been with me for about 10 years now, you can find all of the spooktacular and non-spooktacular stuff that I do. And yes, make sure to like, share, subscribe here on The Horror Show if you have not done such. And yes, Hail to Stephen King Facebook group. If you want to be a member of that, I am the social media admin and moderator on there. So yes, come, share, join, have some palaver. But let's see what Cemetery Dance has for us here. Look at this cover. Yeah, brighten it up, yo. So yes, Sleeping Beauties. I ordered this like 2 years ago, and to finally have it in my hot little hands, as Sai King would say, let's take a look at it, everybody, shall we? So, bum, 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 bum. Okay, so kind of more of the same there. Let's take a peek. Very cool artwork. So we've got the flying birds and what's not. Boy, this was a monster of a read, I gotta tell you guys. And now that I finally have this slipcase gift edition hardcover special edition is limited to a one-time printing of 1,750 copies. Sleeping Beauties, 2018. Wow. In remembrance of Sandra Bland. So we've got a very cool table of contents going down. Yay, yay. Boy, this just means that I have to reread Sleeping Beauties now, finally. And they do have the character list at the very beginning, which is similar to what they did with a certain version of Under the Dome, if I remember correctly. But let's just get to some of the illustrations in here. Everything CD is just beautifully put together, but let's check out some of these full color illustrations that we have in here. So yeah, I'm guessing maybe that's Eve. Eve is a very fascinating character for the sheer fact that she is this mysterious woman who shows up in this town, and she, unlike every other woman, is impervious to this affliction. Let's see what else we got. If you guys were fans of Sleeping Beauties and you have actually read it, please chime in the comments and let me know what you think. Oh, wow, this is a full-on fold-out image. Anyone remember the butterfly significance? That's dope. Very, very cool. Very cool. What else we got? Excuse me. Excuse them what? Let's get to another cool image. Come on, Fuego. We're losing ratings. Okay, another. So I'm guessing this is. So after all of the women, basically, you can't really see that very well in the lighting. After all of the women start to kind of like mobilize and start this community for the ones that have fallen asleep, they go out on a couple missions trying to get together supplies and stuff. And I'm thinking perhaps that's what that image is from. And as you can imagine, like all of the men, when they are left to their own devices, they start fighting, killing each other, all this stuff. Women are what kind of balance the madness of men out. It was one of the key themes of this particular story that I thought was super cute. Yep, and the significance of the fox out in the woods for anybody who recalls. Yes, I must say this is quite the cool edition. And let's get to another. Okay, this is another fold out. So let's check this out. Okay, so it's the same as we have seen on the very cover. So yeah, CD has put together a rad status book here. I must say, I'm very, very stoked to have this in the collection to join my completeness with all of the CD stuff that has been done for Sai King here. There's another illustration here in the back. Yes, the importance of this particular tree for anybody who has read it. I don't want to spoil because this is at the very, very tail end. But yeah, Sleeping Beauties is actually being worked on for television, for AMC, by Owen, which is pretty dope. So it was an idea that Owen had, and then he bounced it off his father, and they would write a chapter, send a chapter, rewrite a chapter. The way when I saw them on the book tour that they described the creation process of this, I found very fascinating and very, very cool. So yes, I know that I have not been super, super kind to this book in the past on this particular show, but this is just all the reason for me to, yes, give Sleeping Beauties another try. Check it out, y'all. Yes, I think that is most definitely in order, and I am so very stoked to put this on the bottom shelf and to have it join all of the different Sai King stuff. So I guess that is going to be the end of the road, everybody. I'm going to take one last little look at the comments here before we wrap everything up proper and official. But I got to extend that grande gracias once more to everybody who took the time to hang out for nearly 30 minutes. This is super, super cool. Okay, and we're just going to go through one last breeze here. Hearts has a few horror elements. If that's what scared you off on Pet Sematary, it's just a great piece of literature. Yeah, the guy who kills her is the guy who runs the Hearts game at college. Okay. Might do a little research into it and see if I can handle it. Oddly enough, I was fine with Pet Sematary up until Gage's funeral. Yeah, Gage's funeral is the bit that really gets everybody for the most part. Thanks for the palaver, Fuego, says David. You've perked me up on my night shift. Now to go exterminate some rats in the basement. Nice, sir. If you're being truthful or not, that is really, really awesome. Mr. Mercedes is the biggest pain in the butt for me to say. Well, it's that alliteration aspect. This was a great one for group discussion. Glad I was able to make this chat tonight. Daniel, I'm so very glad that you were able to make it as well. Sharon Beveridge, Mr. Mercedes is great, subtly creepy. Very much so, especially the mother-son relationship. Boy, it's very strange. All right. Scott Baker says, nice. Plan on tackling Mr. Mercedes after Cujo. Sweet. Well, you have all of June, everybody, to start your journey with Mr. Mercedes. Daniel is totally right. Finders, keepers, Mr. Mercedes, and the watch, in my opinion. But The Outsider is my favorite of all of them. Well, yes, and then we're going to get a Holly novel all her own, which is very exciting. Yes, they've taken quite a bit of my money too, but I love everything they publish. Amen, Ryan. It is money worth spent, man. So no difference if you wake significant other at night. What? I don't know what that's supposed to be. Okay, me when you wake me up. Missed out on the Sleeping Beauty Deluxe Edition. Still waiting for that beautiful edition of Night Shift. Yeah, Scott, they gave us an update. It's supposed to be sending out right after the Sleeping Beauty. So if I just got Sleeping Beauties, that means that Night Shift is going to be coming very, very soon. Wow, that Fallout art is dope. Yeah, it really is. Got my hardcover Sleeping Beauties for $1.50 at the library. Pristine condition. Really like Sleeping Beauties. Eve was an interesting character. Yeah, Eve was worth the price of admission in my estimation. She was fascinating to me. I thought it was good too, maybe because my expectations were super low. Pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Thanks for hosting such an awesome, Sarah. I am happy to host such amazing palaver. I'm just honored to have everybody chillaxing for this. Chris wrote the most beautiful book I've ever seen. Great stream and discussion. Fuego, long days and pleasant nights, everybody. Agreed. Long days and pleasant nights as well. Scott, Dan, Sarah, Sharon, Daniel, David, Corey, I mean, everybody who was a part of this, it is supremely appreciated, and also supremely appreciated for anybody who took the time to watch this after it was initially broadcast live. So once again, I've been Fuego. Y'all have been awesome, and until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, I shall say hasta luego, sin amigos, constant readers and viewers alike, but I am so very hopeful that we get to share more palaver sooner rather than later. Say thank you. And until that instance occurs, remember, stay scared. And read Stephen King. That's right. And also Sutter King. Okay? All right, everybody. Thanks so very much. I actually am about to go watch the first 3 episodes of Nosferatu because I'm an AMC premiere person, and I cannot wait. So much love, y'all. Peace.